My insurance wanted me to have an hour in the plane with the instructor, and we had that all scheduled. But things didn't work out. He texted me this morning saying he still wasn't happy with his level of knowledge of the aircraft and its little foibles. The Musketeer Sport, it's a training aircraft. That's what it's designed for. It's pretty docile, slightly underpowered in the Sport with the 150 horsepower engine, but along with its other Beech brethren, very stable, comfortable, it's big. Yeah, so, but it has some things that can catch you out, particularly on landing. It is very sensitive to speed on landing. The undercarriage is not Oreos. It's a trailing link system with rubber pucks, which means that there's no dampening. There's just softening, but there's no dampening, so you can bounce if your speeds aren't right. And that catches people out. It's a known issue. And if you read the write-ups about the plane, they'll say it's great, it's docile, it's wonderful, stable, but watch your speed on landings because you can bounce and porpoise. With a couple of big guys in it, you're going to have a forward CG, so flat landing with a bounce, porpoising, not good. We've been back for this for a couple of months. You know, he's known about the plane since the beginning. I keep sending him information. I do not fault him at all. He made a sensible decision. It's part of the reason the insurance wants me to have an hour with the instructor. It's part of the reason I was trying to find an instructor who had time in the plane and was used to them, had knowledge of how they perform. And obviously, landing is a dangerous phase of flight. I'm disappointed, obviously. I'm frustrated, obviously. But my frustration is not with my instructor. He made a good decision. He's not happy, he's not comfortable, he's not going to be gung-ho. He said he's a low hours CFI. The guy has 1,300 hours, nearly. You know, he's not low hours. He is at the point where he's getting ready to start applying for airline jobs. A low hour CFI in our current industry is somebody around the 500-600 hour mark. That's where my frustration lies with the training industry. It's based around getting people to the airlines as quickly as possible. It's based around getting people into the system through their private license, their instrument, their commercial, their instructor, turning them into the instructors for the next round of people while they build up their hours. The industry is built around primarily the Part 141 schools who get you in at the beginning for your private, spit you out the other end with your restricted ATP, take you on as instructors, and if you don't instruct for that school, you're going to be instructing for another school that's probably a Part 141 school. These schools primarily have restricted training fleets. Most training in the US and probably around the world is done in Cessnas, 172s primarily. You'll get some 152s thrown in. The second biggest fleet is the Pipers, the PA-28s, the Warriors, Cherokees, Archers, depending on the engine size, and you may get the occasional Tomahawk thrown in. Once you get beyond that, you've got some of the schools switching over to the Diamonds, and you've got the Cirrus schools that are focusing on Cirrus. Cirrus is a bit less the ATP pathway, the professional pilots. They're aimed at owner pilots primarily. So Cessnas, 172s primarily, PA-28s. The younger fleets are running the Diamonds. And that's where my frustration comes in. It's the restricted training fleet that CFIs are exposed to before they go out and train other people in that gap while they're looking to get to the airlines. And then they leave the training environment because they've got jobs at the airlines. So we're not seeing experience on platforms other than the training Cessnas and Pipers and Diamonds. And that makes it hard when you get a plane which is different. The type clubs are great, especially when you have the bigger types, so the Bonanzas, the bigger Cessnas. There are companies that specialize in training for them. There are CFIs with experience on them because they're big enough fleets that there is experience there in independent CFIs who tend to be older. They're either people who instruct for a living or they're people who instruct as a second job. Where you get issues is on planes without such a big user base. The Musketeer Sports, the smaller Musketeers, there's maybe 1,000 of them, might even be less than that. So finding instructors with time on them is harder. And you see it in the experimental community as well. You see people trying to find instructors for their aircraft Some of them, like Vans, have a big enough base that there are CFIs who own Vans aircraft who can do the training. Some of the manufacturers have their own training for type training on them. Just be clear, the FAA doesn't require specific type training. Obviously, they recommend that you get training in any new aircraft you go in because it's a safety issue, and your insurance obviously wants you to do that too. So a lot of the manufacturers do that. You know, the main manufacturers, the manufacturers and the certified aircraft provide training for their aircraft. In the experimental arena, you are seeing at least the bigger manufacturers know who CFIs are for training, and if not, their user groups frequently know people. But there is a gap, and there is, once you get to the less well-known types, there is a gap in knowledge of CFIs who are active, who have knowledge of these airframes and their quirks to be able to reliably give you time and type that the insurance companies want. I'm lucky, my insurance company only wants me to get an hour. Now, for some you need more than that, you need 5 or 10. There's a gap in how we spread this knowledge. It's very tied up in instructors owning their own plane or having had time in that plane, and it's hard to get younger instructors that time in type that they need to feel comfortable in then providing the training to other people. So we're ending up with an available fleet that's getting restricted, and that is something I've had in the back of my mind for a long time. It's been something that I've noticed for years coming up in the experimental community. How do I get time in this type? I need time in this type. Where can I find an instructor? And it's a problem that we need to figure out. I think there is a solution to the problem. I think we need a way to allow instructors to find owners and other instructors who are willing to teach them. We need to find a way to allow this to happen more efficiently, in a way that as part of the CFI process, instructors are exposed to other types other than the main training types. And we need to encourage that. We need schools to encourage their students to fly other aircraft, because it's, especially at one of the big schools, you can be put in an aircraft and fly that one or two of them all the way through. I think exposing instructors especially to the idea that they can fly other aircraft than those very specific ones that they flew in their training is important. It gives them the confidence to know about new aircraft. It expands the base we have for finding instructors to do the checkouts that we need for insurance. I think there's a way we can do this. What's needed is access. We need a way to make the access easier for CFIs to get the time they need in types to feel comfortable with it, so that they can provide the training to the next generation of pilots of those types. And as the fleet ages and the number of examples diminish beyond the 172s, the 150s, the PA-28s, and the Diamonds and Siriuses as they rise up through the schools, and you get the older airframes which have fewer examples, that's going to become more important to allow them to stay flying, to allow them to be experienced by other people, by other pilots other than their current owners. And part of this is going to be encouraging owners to allow CFIs to get the time in their aircraft to do that, finding CFIs who have the experience already to provide that training. I think it's a logistics problem. It's a communication problem. It's how do we get these groups of people together in a meaningful way to expand the base of knowledge. And I think this problem's only going to get worse. We need to find a way to get planes and instructors together to spread the knowledge, so that we have more instructors more comfortable in different types, to allow people to transition between aircraft and to expand the fleet that is available to people. And here ends my rant for today. So I'm going to go now and try to find another instructor. Got the medical, need the instructor, and I'll let you know how that goes.